My fellow Americans, I'd like to start tonight by thanking you for joining today's episode of Keeping Up with the Capitol. This is episode 2, and today we're going to be talking about President Biden's State of the Union address, which aired yesterday, February 7th at 9 p.m. EST. First, let's talk about what the State of the Union actually is. The State of the Union address is outlined as a requirement for the president in the Constitution itself. If we take a look at Article 2, Section 3, we see the clause, "The President shall from time to time give to the Congress information of the State of the Union, and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient." The State of the Union was officially called the State of the Union in 1947, and before then it was simply called the Annual Message. The speech was usually a written message published to the people, but it only started to be consistently delivered in person to the entirety of Congress after 1913 with the efforts of President Woodrow Wilson. From then, the speech transitioned in broadcasting from radio to television broadcasting, which is how almost all of the public views it today. The purpose of the State of the Union is to cover problems currently facing the country, talk about proposed solutions that Congress wants to achieve in order to solve those problems, and talk about accomplishments that have been covered in policy areas over the past year. So that's what the State of the Union is in general. Now let's talk about President Biden's 2023 State of the Union address. Biden covered a lot of points in his address, but let's take a look at some of the highlights. CNN's chart shows us some of the highlights of Biden's State of the Union address. Let's take a look at the biggest 3 areas that he mentioned during his speech: healthcare, infrastructure, and the economy. Biden covered a lot of successes in the past year regarding healthcare, including signing the Inflation Reduction Act into law in order to reduce healthcare costs, along with capping the cost of insulin for seniors on Medicare at $35. Additionally, Biden mentioned giving Medicare the power to negotiate drug prices, which would allow those on Medicare to have access to more affordable prices for their medication. Next up, the economy. Biden mentioned some important statistics, including how unemployment is currently at 3.4%, which is a 50-year low, and the creation of 80,000 manufacturing jobs. Biden also mentioned the importance of investing in America by making sure that manufacturing and production is centered in American production. He also talked about taxing corporations in order to reduce health and childcare costs. Finally, Biden talked about the importance of raising the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is the limit on how much the United States can borrow in bonds. If the United States meets or exceeds the debt ceiling, it means it has to default on its debts, or it can't pay it back. This has an adverse reaction for the general economy by increasing interest rates and inflation. If we raise the debt ceiling, we prevent the U.S. from having to default on its debts. And finally, infrastructure. Biden dropped one of his biggest stipulations by requiring that all federally funded federal infrastructure projects have to have their materials created by American manufacturers. Infrastructure has already been a big part of Biden's administration, especially since signing into law the November 2021 bipartisan infrastructure law, which invested $1 trillion into U.S. infrastructure projects. Biden highlighted how this law has already created over 20,000 projects and thousands of new jobs. It has also increased interconnectivity between communities in various states, especially through transportation infrastructure. There are a lot of points that Biden covered in his address, and these are just some of the highlights. If you'd like to see his entire speech, you can find the transcript linked in the link below, which is accessed from the White House website. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next episode.